Today's video, I'm looking at the various bits and pieces now I made them for a card which I've not stuck together yet, using some of the lovely dies and papers from the Petit Jardin collection from Couture Creations. I've got a desk full of dies and stuff, and so I say it's not stuck down yet, so the flowers are just going to fall off. But this is kind of where I'm going with this, and you'll see the finished article on the blog post. But I wanted to have a look at using these dies, maybe some messier crafting techniques, using embellishment mousses and gilding polishes and gilding wax, that kind of thing. And then foiling is my thing, so I've also brought the foiling into it as well. But it just using some unusual colour combinations to go with the rich colours of this particular paper from the pad. So it's a 12 by 12 paper pad, and I've basically used, let me just put the camera up a little bit, I've basically used half a page. Okay, so one section is on the card, and the piece that's left over, and I've still even got half of that piece left, oh, some of that piece left, not the whole piece. The bit I cut off the top, because this is an A5 card, was used to make this, because whilst that looks like an aperture that goes all the way through to the backing paper, it isn't, because particularly foiling and getting something in exactly the right place, even deciding the right place ahead of time for something like that, it is just too many places that can go wrong. So I just thought I'd create the illusion that it's an aperture onto the backing paper by using that leftover piece and foiling onto that. So this is kind of where we're going. So I've got here this corner. Now this is the Petit corner die from the Petit Jardin collection. It's a lovely die cut. So I've die cut it in black. So with this card I've used some Couture Creations textured card in the purple, because that matches in with the purple in the design here, and then I've used some black card just to make that, give it a matte, and to kind of make the pattern paper pop off it, because they're quite strong colours, you need the contrast. So that's the card, and I've been experimenting with some of the die cuts and using different coloured mousses and different techniques. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll get on to this bit afterwards. Okay, so if you're only interested in the foiling bit, you can skip forward, but some of the techniques come through into this as well. You know, it's YouTube, you can fast forward or stop and go back, watch it again, whatever you like. I won't know what you do. You're not going to offend me if you don't watch it all. So let me keep that for a minute. Right, so this lovely corner, I'll bring it up to the camera. You can see it's got this lovely sheen on it, but it was cut originally from plain black card. It's kind of got a bluish greenish tinge, and then some flecks of gold. So now there are lots of kind of these embellishing mousses and gilding polishes and things on the market, different brands. I've got the Cosmic Shimmer ones. So what I've done is I've taken some of this, let me move that out of the way, and I've just lightly gone over the top of my die cut with this. Now I'm using a piece of release paper here that's had sticky labels stuck to it. It's the backing, just to save me cleaning up so much on my glass mat. So I'm just going to lightly go over this, and this is it's a pearl. It's basically white, or quite soft white. But just very gently, because it's such a fine die cut. Don't be rough with it. Right, you don't want an even coating, you want some bits darker than others, some bits lighter. And rather than being heavy-handed, if you just keep going over it gently, if you need a bit more coverage, you'll get it without breaking your die cut. There we are, so heading for that kind of thing. Can't get the camera to focus. Yep, there we are. But that doesn't match the colour scheme of my card. So then what I did was I got some stamping ink and a nice soft brush. Okay, it's a makeup brush. I bought it in one of those shops where everything's the same price. It's great value. I can't actually remember which one. Now I've got some, that's the wrong ink pad. Let me just find the right ink pad. That's the peril of tidying up so you've got somewhere to put your camera. You put the wrong ink pad away. Right, I want that one, not that one. Okay, I'm just using they're a craft shop's own brand of pigment ink pads. So some ink on there, and then I'm going to pick it up with my dry brush and then just brush it over the top. And the gilding polish is a water-based product, as they tend to be, and it kind of holds on to the ink. So I go from having white highlights to having a pale blue highlight. Here, a bit more ink. There we are, that's now giving that a blue tinge. But then I also want some highlights, and there's yellow in this backing paper. I picked this up, there's some sort of very golden yellows. So I thought I'd put some gold highlights in. So I've now got, this is Pebeo gilding wax, or again it could be an embellishment mousse. Just clean the ink off my brush. Whatever you have really, because it's all water based, it all kind of wipes up really easily. Right, so gilding wax. Now I only want tiny highlights, so I'm going to take some gilding wax and I'm going to just massage it in on my messy paper here. That kind of, it fills in the texture on my finger, and I kind of let it dry almost on my finger before I take it to here, and then I just go very gently. I don't want it everywhere, and I can pick up a bit more off the mat, don't have to go back to the pot. And there we are. Wait for the camera to decide to focus on that. We did earlier, there we are. Right that way out, there we go. So you can see I've got the little gold highlights on there. So that's how I did the corner piece. As I say, it's a beautiful, beautiful corner. And I can imagine this being used for mixed media canvases and all sorts of things. It's just such a beautiful die cut, and there is a matching foiling plate as well. It's not the same size, it's about half the size, but it's the same pattern. It's beautiful. Right, so I've done that, so I've now got two of those corners, And then I thought, well, I'm going to want some foliage, so what can I do with that? So used the same technique with the white gilding polish on black card, and did the dry brushing again. And then I've used the same white gilding polish but on white card and dry brushed with the ink. I'm not quite sure what's going to end up where on the card yet, because I'm still making these bits and pieces. And then, as I say, these gilding polishes, they come in lots of colours. So again, this is the Cosmic Shimmer brand. I know other manufacturers do them. So that's dark cherry, which on black comes out like that. Didn't quite work so well on white. As I say, it's water based, so I even tried brushing some on. Didn't really give me a good effect on white. I used it on the corner die cut as well, and then I've just put some gold on one edge. I'm just waiting for the camera to. Let me just get a piece of black card and put that behind. Oh, that's better. The camera's lighting that properly now. So there we are. So you can see I've put the purple straight on. It's got a really strong colour. But obviously if you're using the white, you can choose what colour you use and blend into it. But that's the dark cherry. Let me just pick this up again against the black card. It's hooked itself together. There we are. So yeah, it makes the blue stand out more when I have the black card. So I find it always best with these things. You're kind of making it look like weathered metal. And I find the best of these not to try and get the colour even. It needs to look right. It needs to be uneven. Okay, so that's those. And as I say, whatever embellishment, waxes, polishes, mica powders, anything like that brushed on, there's something to fix it, would work beautifully. So that's my corners. Okay, and then my frame, and I've got the waist of it here. That background pattern was done using the embossing folder, which I've got somewhere here. What did I do with it? Embossing folders, here we are. So again, I know not everybody has got the same embossing folders. And I was picking out from my collection for this card. Possibilities I considered were this one with the little flowers, or this one, and in the end I decided to go with this one, which is a Couture Creations one. It's called Antiquity. It's part of the Lacquerelle collection, so it's quite an old one. But that's the kind of pattern you want, something fine and small. So that was embossing folders. So next, let me come to where I start with this. Okay, so if you're not going to hot for the edges, then you could just put some gilding wax around to highlight the edge, that kind of thing. But I foiled it, so let me show you how I did that foiling. I'm just going to move the messy stuff out of the way. Oh, and I'm going to put my GoPress and foil on. Let me put these back in their box. Get the gilding wax off my finger. Yes, the actual Pebeo gilding wax is not water based, so you need something with a little bit more, I expect to splat a little bit of alcohol in it to actually get it off your fingers. Right, so move that out the way as well. Right, so my Go Press and Foil. So the foiling on this is done using the back of the dies I've used to cut out the rectangle and the oval aperture in it. They're just plain dies from nesting die sets. So when you get lots of dies in the same shape for different sizes. Okay, so I think these are even 2 different brands. So it doesn't matter which brand. So I am going to arrange these on here. Somewhere, yeah, there. Excuse me. I've got a piece of magnetic storage sheet, and that's going to help me get things to stand still, because I put my card on there, and then my dies don't slip about. I can move them, but they don't just jiggle. Okay, so I'm going to need that. Put that to one side again. So it's over there. Let me just bring in the Go Press and Foil. There we are. Whole machine. Okay, and be very careful where it bleeds, because I've not got a lot of extra on the blow. So here's my Go Press and Foil. I haven't used it yet this morning, so it's going to be a case of, while we're waiting for it to warm up, I'll cover some other aspects of the card. But here's my Go Press and Foil. It's plugged in. Actually, I'm going to bring that back because the Go Press won't stick to it. There, right, that's better. So I've got a red light on here. I'm not sure how well it shows up on the camera, but it's a steady red light. And that means it's plugged in. It's absolutely cold because I haven't told it to heat up. And actually this has been sat on my craft table since yesterday, just sat there plugged in with the light on. If you've not used it, I think it's for 25 minutes, or it might be 20 minutes. It stops heating and goes back to just having the red light on. And it's basically just kind of a standby mode. And it could just sit there like that. So if I want it to heat up, I have to press the button. Make sure you press it properly rather than just touching the plastic. And you can actually feel the difference once you've got it wrong and then done it right. You know how it feels when you press it properly. So that is flashing now, and if I put my hand on there, I can feel that's starting to warm up. Okay, so that's now heating. Okay, and when it's ready, when you want to use the Go Press, you just slide the platform out, and then that goes to a flashing green light, and that means I haven't got anything to do because the platform's not there. Slide that back in. That's going to go back to red flashing because it's now heating this bit up. So let me put that back. Ooh, there we are. It's just over there on the other side of the table. Okay. So while I'm waiting for that, I also need to talk about foiling with the backs of dies. Now, if I'm foiling with the back of the die, the last thing I want to do, I'll put my dies down now. Where have I put the dies? Ah, over there. Right, so I've got these on a magnetic sheet. This is the waste from the one I've got made up. So I've started with an A6 piece of card and prepared my foiling on that. I'm using a magnetic sheet so that my dies don't slide around too much. But when I foil this, I can't put that cutting edge down on my Go Press. I would damage the non-slip surface if I do that. okay, that may possibly cause electrical problems as well, because there's a heating element underneath that surface. So I don't want to damage that surface at all. So what we do is this. Now I use the sort of metal shim that comes with your die cutting machine. So they're quite inexpensive, just an A5 thin metal shim. And again, depending on the exact thickness of your metal shim and your die cutting machine, you'll need 1 or 2 thicknesses of, well, this is 300 GSM cardstock underneath it, and I've cut it so it fits inside the grey heated area. Okay, so what you do is you put that on your go press, you put your foil on top of your cardstock, and I will get my foil out in a moment. So the foil will go on there, and then the dies go down. Okay, but I'm not just going to put it all down and hope for the best that it's in the right place, because this is going to be an aperture. I need these laid out precisely. So while the grow press is warming up, let me just pull that out a second. I can put my 2 shims, just make sure they're kind of lined up, onto the grey base, and the heat will come through those shims and into the metal plate. I'll just leave that now to warm up. My foil. I have my magnetic sheet and my cardstock. Now you do need some low tack tape for this. I use Rock brand. 3M do a similar, it's sort of a decorator's masking tape for delicate surfaces. It's the sort of thing you'd use if you were putting a precise stripe in a new paint job. So it peels away from the card really nicely, because it's designed to peel off a fresh paint without damaging it. I think I might have got that. Yeah, just about. I want my foil just a little bit smaller than my card, and that's to allow me to tape the foil to the card. I'm just going to trim that edge straight. Put my foil on there. Right, that goes there. I'm going to put my rectangle down, and I'm going to use some small pieces of tape to tape that in place, and they're just overlapping the frame and going onto the cardstock. Okay, they're literally just to stop it sliding about while I move it onto the go press. They don't have to withstand any great force. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in a few places. Okay, so that's the rectangle stuck to my card, not the magnetic sheet. Okay, and then I need to get the oval centered in it. Now this I think is the tricky bit. I don't like working with ovals at the best of times. So I'm going to put it in. So the first thing I'm going to do is just line my card up with the bottom of my magnetic sheet, because having too many different straight edges to look at is confusing me. So I'm going to put my oval down in the middle, and then I'm just going to make sure it's rotated correctly. Slide it about on the foil so it looks like it's kind of level, straight. Okay, and when you think you've got it right, I'm really sure I haven't here. Okay, my tip is turn it round and look at it portrait that way and decide whether or not that top and bottom looks equal and whether or not it looks like it's in the middle and straight, and then turn it round the next way and have a look at that. My rectangle isn't straight on the card, that doesn't matter, it's the oval in the middle of the rectangle has to be right. Yeah, that looks okay, and then finally that way. So I'm going to go with that. Okay, so I need to tape the oval down. Okay, so I can put some pieces of tape that go from one to the other. And they may overlap the edge or not. Okay, you might want some bigger pieces of tape in some places. There we are. When I'm doing this, my pieces of tape get smaller and smaller because when you do the foiling part, when you actually put it, the go press through the die cutting machine, the die cuts through the foil. So your pieces of tape get smaller and smaller. So there we are. So I can slide my card off my magnetic piece, my storage sheet, put that out the way, and then let me pull this out. I'm going to pull out the hot plate of my go press. Now if I'm not working for the camera, I just stand up and lean over my go press that's over here and open the lid and do it, but it's easier to bring this into view. So I'm going to put that on my go press and I'm going to put it at an angle. And I'm doing that because when the roller comes along, if it hits that whole edge, it's like having lots of cutting surfaces to put pressure on all at once. You end up, your die's not cutting properly. So I would end up with not good foiling along that straight edge. So I'm going to twist it so that it doesn't hit all of that edge at once. Okay, I'm going to put that on, and then that needs to warm up. Now, while we're waiting, let's talk flowers. Let me move my messy mat out of the way. So if you've got a crafting mat that things don't stick to, that's ideal. I haven't got one of those, so I use a piece of release paper. Okay, so the light has gone green, but I'm going to leave it for longer. Okay, so I've got my card, got my mats and my layers to stick down. I've got some flowers now. This is another die from the Petit Jardin collection. So I've cut that from some white card and I've stuck it down in the middle of some card. Actually an offcut from where I made the mat here. And then just cut around it with scissors, just slightly undercutting it. And then I've culled the top layer more than the bottom layer. That's all I've done to separate them, give me some dimension in that. And that's kind of probably going to go down in that corner. Okay, so that's that one. And then I just used some other flower dies I had to make some smaller flowers. And I've not used the same ink because it was too strong a colour. I've used a lighter blue ink, just on a blending tool, and just gone round the edges of the petals for those, and literally just used a normal water soluble dye based colouring pen. It's not an expensive one, just a set from the local large supermarket. They keep it in there, sort of items for children to take to school. So and I've just used that to put some dots in the middle of the flower. Is it going to focus? Yeah, from there. I can never figure out why sometimes it's... There we go. There we go. Oh, there we go, it's focusing. Right, just put some dots in the middle. So just a small flower, and I'll do a few of those. I might use some purple ink as well. Actually, I've got some of those here. So if I do, let's do some purple. So I just literally take my die cut. It's die cut from these from some leftover 300 GSM card that was not cut. But whatever you've got, you know, a strong paper or card. Just go around the edges. Okay, and the same with the smaller version. Okay, and then I use a piece of sturdy foam. Flower shaping mat, if you've got it, is wonderful. I don't have one of those either. Right, and I'm going to, my big petals, I'm going to curve downwards. So I'm just going to turn it over, push the bulb tool into it, turn it over, press in the middle with the small end. And then these petals I'm going to curl upwards. Bit of glue. So I've not put my spots in the middle. I'll do that afterwards, because otherwise, because it's a water soluble ink, I might find I've smudged them with my ball tool when I do that. There we are. So that's how I make my little flowers. And that's a purple one, so there we go. So that's that. The Go Press is well and truly warm now. So let me tidy my mat and go and get my die cutting machine, and I'll show you how I roll that through. Okay, so I'm going to pull the hot plate out now. So just squeezing the lid on the top so nothing moves, and then it can come through the die cutting machine. So just going to roll it through nice and slowly. I can feel resistance there, but it's no more than really than when I'm normally running over a hot foil stamp. So I'm going to go forwards and back. And then I'm just going to pick up the lid and change the angle of that on the Go Press. And I'm going to roll it again. Move the die cutting machine out of the way. Okay, so now we need to check the foiling. So what I'm going to do is just have a peep under a corner. Now I don't know if I can get you to peep with me. The camera will actually pick that up. I don't think it will. Ooh, maybe it will. There we are. So I can just lift a corner and have a peep. That's looking pretty good to me. So on that basis, I'm going to take my tape off and hope it's that good everywhere. It is just plain black card. So it's one of those techniques you can practice on some card you've got lots of, ready for when you're doing it on card you haven't got lots of. So I'll say that the die actually cuts through the tape, and they cool down really quickly because there's not a lot of metal there. So this is the second time I've used these pieces of tape, so I'm not going to try and keep them to use again. They're getting very small. If I peel this back, there. And I have got some overfoiling in the middle, but I don't mind because I'm cutting that bit out anyway. Oh, I had that waste piece. I'm not going to cut it out yet. That's the waste piece from the one I'm actually using, and even that, I think I could put a mat over the top of that with something on it, and that'd be quite useful. So that's not going to get thrown away. So the next stage is to emboss it. Okay, so I don't want to cut it yet, because when I emboss it I'm going to end up with crinkles in my foiling, and if I die cut afterwards it'll help straighten them out. So you look on this one, I'll bring it really close. You can see that there's some dinks in the card around the foiling, but they were more pronounced before I die cut it. Okay, so I'm going to emboss it next. So my embossing folder, okay, as I say, I chose this one. Didn't have to be this particular one. Now I want to make sure my foiling kind of lines up with my pattern, rather than my cardstock lining up with it. It's just, I just want to make sure it's straight. Not that it will make much difference, but so yeah, that the bottom of that straight line comes there. So I've just picked a couple of points in the pattern that line up with the base of that line, just to make sure that's straight. And then I just need to run that through my die cutting machine. So let me go and do that, and then I'll show you. Okay, so that's now embossed. So this is what I've got. So you can see the embossing on the foiling is quite pronounced. So that's why when I die cut, some of that will get flattened out. So I want my messy sheet back, and I want my gilding polish back. And whatever combination you've decided to do things. So there's that. I need my brush. I've got my ink there. Again, I'm just going to go over this lightly. Obviously I'm not worried about the middle section particularly, but you might have something in mind you want that for. You don't need to avoid it, certainly. Going to add a little bit of water to my applicator. I've had these probably getting on for 2 years, and I think they're getting a little bit dry now. it's tempting to press hard when you're not getting good coverage, but that just means you get it where you don't want it. So you're better making sure you've got the product, you know, on your sponge and able to work with. I'm just using the water brush here, just to put a little bit of water on my mat to pick up on that applicator. So I don't want a lot, just enough to get this moving a bit. And the other thing with this being a water-based product is it doesn't like sticking to the foil, or if it does, it's very easy to remove. Right, so that'll do for that. So then, yeah, gold, hot gold foil, black card, white gilding polish. I did try this with silver gilding wax, but my ink didn't stick to it. Yeah, the gilding wax was fine as gilding wax, but my ink wouldn't stick to it afterwards. So it's and then go over the ink to just change the tone. Okay, then we have that. Now it's looking more blue. Okay, and then I need to cut out the topper with the aperture. So I need my dies back. I'll have some fresh bits of tape. Okay, so you just position the die back over your foiling. So basically so you can't see your foiling. Like that. And it's quite important here because of the gilding polish. I need to make sure I tape to the waste card. So I want to go around the outside of the rectangle and the inside of the oval. So up there. Make sure that's moved slightly. And I would tape in at least 2 places, if not more. And the oval, I'm going to tape on the inside. And that's because the glue from the tape may well pull off my gilding polish and ink. Okay, so that's taped down. I'm going to run it through the die cutting machine and I'll be back. So this is the piece we want. So as you can see, it's not completely gone, but the pressure from the die around those forward areas has smoothed them out significantly. Okay, so now all I need is an army of faux pads on the back. There'll be a photo on the blog of exactly how I put the faux pads on the back, and for my sentiment onto a separate piece of the pattern paper, and then I can put the two together. And I'll take the waste from this. That's something for another card, I think. So there we are. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I've forgotten to mention. Let's bring the card back and remind ourselves where we were going. Don't forget to take your dies off. I do know somebody who has actually said to me, oh, you know, I had that die. I think I threw it away with my waste card. Which is a really sad thing to happen. So do make a point of separating out your dies. Right, let's get rid of the messy paper. So here's my card. As I say, it's not stuck down, so it all keeps moving every time I try and pick it up. But I like to put my cards together without any glue and make sure I'm happy with where everything's going to go before I start sticking down. So I've got this nice big flower for the corner here. You know, I might put those there. As I say, you'll and one of my corners, and you could cut some bits of this out and use them as foliage down there, but that decorates that corner beautifully. There may be another flower on it as well. I did try cutting some flowers from the papers in the paper pad, and they're lovely, but I'm not sure they stand out enough. I might use that one, might not. Haven't quite decided, but lots of ideas. And then I've got my evening branch die cuts, that one, and there's a black one somewhere. Well, that's the purple one. Lots of ways you can use these. It's become one of my go-to dies, this one. Now, maybe not that one, it's not quite the right tones for this card, but just to look at the possibilities. So that's how my card will kind of come together, with some more flowers, and there you have it. So hopefully I remember to mention everything I do and show you. It's the Petit Jardin collection from Couture Creations. That is becoming one of my most used dies, that little one. And this corner, that just has so many possibilities for placing, you know, situations in which you could use that. I've used it on sort of more masculine cards as well, because there aren't actually any flowers on it. You know, if you were a princess castle that you needed to frame, anything like that, it's just, as I say, got so many possibilities. So thank you for watching, and as I say, I'll put more details in the blog post. Thank you.